Hey everyone, Jag Taggart 93 here, doing another one of my episodes of Jag Taggart Remembers. This time I'll be remembering, well, Channel Awesome. I'm gonna do my best to keep this one brief because I got a lot to say. As someone who's been watching it for years and years and years and being paying a lot of attention to the ups and the downs, I can go really in depth, but I'm not, especially since that means if I do, I'll probably not. Once I start, I won't be able to stop. Um, well, I guess I'll start at the beginning. When I first discovered the Nostalgia Critic. When I did, it was around 2008, I want to say. I was working at a library at my college, and during those summer months, it was dead. Nothing to do at all whatsoever. So usually I just, screwed on the internet. Um, at that time, I found a creator known as the Angry Video Game Nerd. At the time, known as the Angry Nintendo Nerd, and I was really enjoying his stuff. I liked how he got a little more in depth with what he was critiquing, even though it was always from a position of over the top reactions and dick jokes and shit jokes. But he would nitpick the old Nintendo video games, especially very specific things. I remember freaking out about it as a kid. So I really enjoyed that content that went beyond just saying, "Oh, did you know Super Mario Brothers 2 isn't really Mario Brothers 2? LOL." This was actually from a place of genuine interest. Um, More people like him started to spring up over the coming months, and the big one that he crossed over with was the Nostalgia Critic, and that's how I discovered the Nostalgia Critic. When I discovered Nostalgia Critic, I soon found his website, thatguywiththeglasses.com, and on that site, I found what appeared to be a community of fellow creators that were all there to share a common goal and common interests of sharing more about their passions with the wider nerd community. Each one had their own little niche. So my favorites at the time were Spoony, Linkara, Sad Panda, Welshie, and Lord Cat. Um, Especially Spoony, actually, because Spoony went really in depth about my brand of nerddom, my brand of things that really interest me. I love old school FMV games. I can play Sewer Shark and Tone Blue in the face. I love the Terra Tracks recordings as well too. Those were always a lot of fun to listen to. He also would go very in depth about game stories that were just so exciting to hear about with regards to Dungeons and Dragons and Vampire. Um, his rants and reactions to the Highlander series and the Ultimate series were also something that I can relate to as well. So he was great. Um, Even if I didn't always agree with the contributor or if I didn't always agree with the content creator, I still enjoyed their stuff. So case in point, Linkara, who made no bones about it how much he hates the work of Rob Liefeld. Um, and I would laugh because personally, I really enjoy Liefeld's work. I always have ever since I was 12. I guess that kind of explains why I like it so much. But even though he would go very over the top about it, his criticisms would be, for the most part, even though I would disagree with them, pretty hard to argue against. And just that's really just it. There was negativity in their reviews, but the negativity was always coming from a good place, a place of common interest. I felt like that with these reviewers, even when they're screaming until they're blue in the face about betrayal or about this or that not being good in a particular movie or comic or whatever. I always felt that it wasn't personal. I always felt that it was from a place of, well, we love this property and this is how we feel. And I always felt that if I was to approach any one of them and say, hey, I feel differently, they'll laugh it off and, we could have a discussion about it. It wouldn't be seen as a personal attack. It wouldn't get toxic. This would change with some of them, I think, years later, where the criticism would become a little more mean spirited. At least it would come across that way. Case in point, again, Spoony, where a lot of his criticism, it sounded like what a lot of the things he was reviewing, especially in his board game or his video board game series. A lot of the criticism was turned towards fans of certain things as opposed to the thing itself, and that came across as a bit mean spirited, and a lot of people point to that as a sign that Spoonie was, starting to lose it a little bit. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I'm still in the early years here, so I'm enjoying, Spoonie's content. I'm enjoying Linkara's content, and of course, I'm enjoying the Nostalgia Critic. Personal favorites being the Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter review. That was amazing. I also really enjoyed Dunstan Checks In. I remember watching that movie in theaters, and I could relate to a lot of what the critic had to say about it. Um, so many other great things. And at this time in the 2000s, early 2000s to 2008, 2009, it seemed like nerd culture was very much on the rise. It was cool to be a nerd, and nerd culture was easily accessible. And there was a slew of people perpetuating it and putting it forward who weren't just in it to make money. It didn't seem artificial, this movement that was happening. So it was fantastic. Um, Soon I was able to see the Nostalgia Critic for real. I was able to see Doug Walker and his brother Rob at a free convention at UConn, University of Connecticut, called UConn at UConn. He's been there a few times, I think, but this was the first time he was there, and I was super excited to see him. For real, actually. I remember getting to meet him, and I'm sure I wasn't the only one that's ever done this to, in front of him, but I was really short on words. I was starstruck, essentially. This guy just seemed so great at his job, and internet celebrity was something that seemed very, very new at the time. So I was like, whoa, this is amazing. And here he is at a convention that's free. Again, UConn was a free convention. I remember meeting him a few times, during his panel and afterward, getting to talk with him, and he came across as extremely humble, extremely down to earth. Now, this is very important because this contrasts sharply with, well, I wouldn't say too sharply, but it does contrast a bit with how he comes across sometime later. But initially, the Doug Walker I met in 2000, I want to say it was 2009, came across as extremely humble, very easy to relate to, very easy to talk to as well. We were able to talk, we were able to discuss things, and it just seemed very relaxed, actually, too. Yeah, so things were good until about 2010, 2011, and after that, too. The cracks were starting to show a little bit. I think the big change was around when the website went from thatguywiththeglasses.com into channelawesome.com. And one thing that bothered me about the site, both the old one and the newer one, and the new one 2 years later, but there's a few changes to that site. But one thing that always bothered me was that it was very hard to keep track of my favorite contributors. It seemed like sometimes a name was up, sometimes a name wasn't. They would have contributors listed who didn't post anything in years, and I wouldn't know, where are they? What are they doing? Sometimes contributors would be let go without anyone saying anything. Sometimes people would appear, characters would appear, and I would have no idea who they are. So off the top of my head, I remember Lord Cat just suddenly up and disappearing. This is sometime after his crossover with Spoonie in the Pumpkinhead game. One of my favorite reviews, actually. Love that game. Again, it's based on an old horror movie, Pumpkinhead 2, Blood Wings. It's an FMV type game, right up my alley with two of my favorite contributors. I was like psyched. And then Lord Cat disappeared. Sad Panda, I think, also left the site. I remember not seeing any content from him for a while, but it could be possible that maybe he was uploading and it just wasn't showing because that site was a mess. I don't know. He was around in later anniversary specials, though. Mati, who is a recurring character, I think, maybe. But I'll be damned if I could ever find anything on the site from him. That chick with the goggles was another contributor I really liked who just poofed, disappeared. I remember one day going to the site and seeing stuff by Team 4-Star and getting psyched. I was like, wow, Team 4-Star is part of Channel Awesome. This is great. And then I stopped seeing their videos altogether, and I'm like, okay, that was weird. So that was really off-putting. This was supposed to be a tight-knit community of contributors that all support and help each other get exposure, and yet I'm having a hard time keeping track of all of them. There's also little things I was picking up on in the videos too. There were these little things, I can't really describe them, just these little nods. They seem like little inside jokes that I didn't always understand, but they seemed in nature to be pointed at Channel Awesome. I do remember there were some instances during Welshie's videos where he would make little references to stuff happening at Channel Awesome, and it didn't seem to be in a positive context. But I can't say any more than that because I really had no idea what he was talking about. And of course, Welshie was another contributor too who just poofed, disappeared. There was this whole controversy as well at the time about Blip TV and YouTube. Contributors wanted to upload things to Blip TV. Blip TV was a mess to try and find stuff on, and even at the time, you can tell that Blip TV was not going to stay around very long. Yeah. So even though the cracks were starting to show, Doug Walker was still putting himself out there, still doing during the convention circuit. He still does. I got to see him another time at UConn, and while it was still a very enjoyable experience, I can't quite put my finger on it, but this time he seemed a little less humble, and he seemed a little more distant. Again, I can't really put my finger on it. Just he was making. I remember at that first UConn at UConn, I feel like there were more jokes and self-deprecating humor, and jokes about being blown away and and stuff like that. And at this later experience, there were more jokes of that basically boiled down to look how great I am, look how amazing I am, kneel before Zod, and there's always very tongue in cheek. He didn't actually believe that that we should all be kneeling in front of him, but there was more and more jokes like that. That just kind of, I wouldn't say they were off-putting or bad or anything like that. It was just again, it seemed like this was a different person in some way. Now, as the site was growing, there was also the anniversary specials. The first one being the brawl between the Angry Video Game Nerd and the That Guy with the Glasses crew, and that was very fun, actually, very fun to watch. After the brawl, there was Kickassia, which also was fun to watch. On Kickassia, the production did seem a bit amateurish. It seemed very unprofessional, but it was their first major anniversary special, the first big one. So that's I was like, okay, fine, whatever. It's a newer site. People doing this out of their own schedules. It's fine, and it seemed like it was fun to make. It seemed like in the video everyone was having a lot of fun and having a blast. I can't say for certain if that was the case. I heard horror stories about behind the scenes about people not being able to get water and whatnot, but the Kickassia was not a hard movie for me to sit through. The next few ones though are a different story. Suburban Nights I've never been able to sit through entirely, and To Boldly Flee I've never been able to sit through as well. It just seemed like these were getting worse from my perspective. I mean, if you enjoy all of them, great. If you enjoy Suburban Nights and To Boldly Flee the most, more power to you. But I can't. I mean, my problem with Suburban Nights is very much like the problem I had with the newer website, the bigger website. With Suburban Nights, there were quite a few contributors that I thought were important enough to be included that weren't in there. A lot of the contributors who were in Suburban Nights were acting a bit differently than how I would expect them to act. Their characters were different, even though they're the same name. It was as if they were given a direction that wasn't, one that they should have. And then there was a couple of contributors, and I don't even know if they're contributors, but there were characters there that were treated like they were contributors that I hardly even knew. I had no idea who they were, and I tried to follow them after Suburban Nights, and I wouldn't be able to find much of anything. After Suburban Nights, there was To Boldly Flee, and that's when the Nostalgia Critic was hanging it up and wanting to move on to other things. Um, Here is probably the big first blow up at the site. When Nostalgia Critic left, a lot of contributors took it really hard because these contributors are depending upon the exposure from the big one, Doug Walker's character, to, trickle down to all of them. And with that character gone, the stakes were high for Doug to deliver on something huge in place of the Nostalgia Critic. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to do that. The demo reel flopped. Around this time, too, there are more cracks that were starting to form. Spoonie left the site, and while both he and Channel Awesome were saying that it wasn't due to that joke that he made on Twitter, there were other factors that went into the decision. And while both Spoonie and Channel Awesome would continue to do business with each other for a few months afterward, Spoonie's demeanor appeared to be changing in his videos until just 2017, where he didn't really release anything at all, and now it's 2018, and he's been radio silent for months and months and months. I hope he's doing all right. I really do. Um, Phalus and Obscura Lupa left a few years after Spoonie um, on not very good terms. Lupa supposedly was fired from Channel Awesome for not answering a Skype call fast enough for the CEO, Mike Machad. That's the accusation. Very tough seeing them leave. Then there was this controversy about the ads, Adgate. I remember Linkara asking people to keep the ads going, don't turn on ad block, and a lot of fans were confused by this. Like, why do you need more money? Don't you get enough money from this? And a lot of us won't find out until months and months later that no, they don't really get paid at all for these videos. A lot of times the ad revenue would go right to Channel Awesome. Case in point being during the anniversary specials, which one would think that would be a golden time to do crossovers with people. Supposedly at the time, Channel Awesome was saying if you do any crossovers during an anniversary special, they get the money to cover travel expenses. And that could be understood if Channel Awesome was bankrupt, but they couldn't have been because they have been getting money from other things. Doug Walker's ad revenue, I think, would be a huge thing. DVD and merch sales would be a huge thing as well. Uh, there's a lot of other marketing possibilities there that maybe they weren't taking full advantage of. Uh, I also remember hearing that the contributors were discouraged from having their own Patreons, which I thought would be a fantastic idea, actually, if they were allowed to have them. And yet, Channel Awesome did their own crowdfunding for a project that would just flop, the Pop Quiz Hotshot, which was pretty embarrassing to watch, really. Yeah, at this time, it just seemed like the site was changing, and fans, like such as myself, weren't getting answers as to why it was changing. Why were things looking so crappy now? Um, so we would look for answers. The official forums, though, just seemed very quiet, and what you did hear just sounded like it was coming from an echo chamber. So fans like me who kept digging, we kept digging. We found other things. I rediscovered Lord Cat. I found his podcast, and I was listening to him, and I was surprised how negative he was sounding about Spoon, he and Channel Awesome. He sounded very bitter as well. However, I hate to say it, but a lot of things he was saying, he wasn't wrong. The one thing that sticks in my head was he said that Channel Awesome could have had their own convention. And when they were at their height, they really could have, and that could have brought in a lot of new talent, expanded their community. He begrudged them for having no clear plan of expansion, no clear plan of marketing, no professional administrative strategy to handling other contributors. Nothing. Everything was very dog and pony, and it almost seemed like they went out of their way. They tried to put effort into having as little effort as possible and trying to be as reactive as possible as opposed to proactive to problems. So, again, I didn't like what I was hearing from Lord Cat, what he was saying about other contributors. A lot of it sounded very mean, very cruel, but fuck, I hate to say it, but a little bit of it sounded Accurate. Sounded right. Um, yeah. So demo reel failed. The crowd-funded pop quiz hotshot failed. I remember Lord Cat talking about the crowdfunding and how terrible it was, and how he was certain that whatever was made with the crowdfunding money was gonna fail. And I was really hoping Channel Awesome would prove him wrong. I was really hoping. And no, I tune in, I watch Pop Quiz Hotshot, and I see people doing double dare like challenges with props from the dollar store. Um, and then I saw I remember watching Too Boldly Flee again, and just scratching my head looking at the props. Like the Judge Dredd costume, for example, that they had that they had for that movie, and just I mean, I just couldn't help but wonder, shouldn't they be better than this by now? I mean, God, I'm sorry if I sound a little congested. I actually am. I am getting over a cold. But I really felt like I should be addressing this now. Um, once, because things have seemed to have settled for now. But I'm willing to bet that new stuff will probably come out probably next week and make uh, this entire rant, obsolete by then. But whatever. So, time goes by. Channel Awesome isn't expanding. Instead, it just seems like it's on life support. And there's a slew of things they could be doing. They could be expanding their community. They could be doing crossovers with other large creators and other people on YouTube, networking more, something. But no, it definitely seems like they're still just stuck in third gear. Um, Last year, the Obscurus Lupa, Lindsay Ellis, who had her own fair share of drama outside of Channel Awesome, and others got together and put together a document called "Change the Channel" and put it on social media with the hashtag "Change the Channel," where contributors shared their stories of mismanagement and unprofessional antics at Channel Awesome. And on the document, you had a lot of accusations. A lot of them seemed very petty and minor. And I'm sure the people submitting them would agree that they were petty and minor, but and others seemed pretty major. Now, Channel Awesome had a few options here when this document and this hashtag was going around. Looking at the numbers, it wasn't affecting them too much initially. They were losing subscribers, but it was dozens, and they're still gaining hundreds. So very minor. They could have easily ignored it, and I think it would have blown over in a few months. That's exactly what the angry video game nerd did whenever there was controversy with him. I don't want to go on a tangent here, but I remember with the angry video game nerd, there was controversy about the Cheetah video game. It being advertised as a fixed version of Cheetah Men 2, when in reality it really was just the ROM, which isn't fixed, put on a cart and charged way more than what people should be for it. There was controversy. James Rolfe ignored it, and it went away. The Ghostbusters thing, when James Rolfe put out a video saying, "I'm not going to review Ghostbusters. It looks like shit," the new one. People freaked out. He could have responded. He could have doubled down. He didn't. It went away. I remember the controversy with the movie that he made about E.T. I was part of the controversy too. I was very negative and outspoken about how disappointed I was. I was hoping for a documentary, as nerdy as it sounds, about the creation of E.T. and what happened to those cards. I thought that'd be very much more interesting, but maybe go in detail about what gaming culture and game development was like in the 80s too. That can be very exciting. But no, instead it was very, very crap, pretty crap. And people reacted that way. People said it was crap. James could have doubled down. He could have acted negatively to the criticism. He didn't. And it went away. And James Rolfe is still doing what he's doing now. So Channel Awesome could have done the same in response to this hashtag. They didn't. They responded, not with an apology, which also would have been, proactive, would have been better. But no, they respond with, "We regret you felt that way." That's the big line I remember from their wasn't an apology, from the response towards the hashtag. we regret that you felt that way. So a very backhanded way of saying, well, we're sorry you felt that way, but you're wrong. When they responded this way, it was like trying to put out a dumpster fire with gasoline. And now that dumpster fire, that they could have tried just letting it burn out or putting water on it, apologizing or something, now it's become a house fire. Now more content creators see this and start leaving Channel Awesome, or they add on their complaints to this document. Um, Very stupid. If they want to respond, they had to do it with PR in mind, but they didn't. You think that they would learn from this. They didn't. So, in response to more people freaking out about this, and in response to the hashtag continuing, and yet their numbers still aren't bad, for that house fire, they tried to stop the fire by blocking it with really, really dry wood, and inadvertently caused a forest fire now. So what happened was Channel Awesome responded uh, with a very unprofessional and very petty blog post that cherry picked things from the document as quote unquote accusations, and it would respond with quote unquote fact, which a lot of the facts they would use to quote unquote debunk the accusations weren't really debunking anything. So, for example, there was one accusation that Channel Awesome was leading a misogynistic culture. And for the fact, they said, well, we have current talent that has never experienced any misogynism. So there. I mean, can you not see the logical fallacy in that? That is just stupid. The worst part about this was in doing this, in showing that they were receptive to the feedback of their content contributors and tried to handle them professionally, in response to the accusation that they knew about a sexual predator being on staff and handled it, they showed a chat log of them talking about releasing this contributor who had been accused of sexual misconduct. And yes, they censored the person's name, not well, but they did. But they didn't block out the times or the dates. And this is the internet, people. I mean, you guys are internet contributors, you're internet critics. You've been on the internet for a while. You know that if you release the slightest thing on the internet, the slightest thing, the smallest little grain of sand, someone is going to be able to figure out what beach that sand came from and when. So yes, that person got outed. They found out who that content contributor was, and they even found out who the victims were too. So holy shit! Right at that moment, this internet drama turned into something really, really, really real, and caused the remaining contributors to make like the Titanic and jump ship, or make like it's the Royal Rumble and start going over the top rope. Right now, it's just down to Cinema Snob and Guru Larry as being the only two contributors left on the site. Personally, I'd love to see Spoonie now return with a Money in the Bank briefcase. Actually, I think that'd be hilarious. That'd be amazing. And why not? He has nothing else to lose, I would think. So, do it, please. I don't think he will. But, when I look at this whole thing, I can't help but compare this to nerd culture in general. This whole thing with Channel Awesome is very much a microcosm to the macrocosm of nerd culture over these last 10 years, I feel. In 2008, it seemed like nerd culture was booming. We had, did we still have G4 TV? Maybe we didn't. Well, still, 2007, 2006. There seemed to be more positivity and more enthusiasm in gaming and old movies and nostalgia. And over time, things just became more and more toxic. It at least feels that way. It feels like at first you had criticisms that were from a place of love and positivity, more and more people would nitpick and nitpick and nitpick, and just revel in just kind of being as toxic or as negative as possible. Um, at the beginning, there was genuine enthusiasm, and now there seems to be this cynicism, this nihilism. And I can't put my finger on what happened, but that's probably a video for another time. But Channel Awesome, it definitely just seems to be a symptom of that, culturally speaking. Um, Granted, I'm not entirely sober right now, but if anyone knows what I'm talking about, great, thank you. Um, but it just really, really sucks hearing how a community that we were all led to believe that we're a group of positive individuals that were all there to support each other, help each other get noticed, and sharing, a common goal of getting noticed for their niche, nerdy fandoms. It just sucks hearing about that community being there. It was really just a myth. And in reality, this community was very cliquey and very snipey, and there was jealousy and all these other terrible things. And it really, really sucks hearing about it. Now, what I hope to happen is the following. I really hope Channel Awesome has consulted legal authorities, has done so in the past when this shit first started happening behind the scenes, and is following up and doing it now, making sure that everything that they're in the clear legally, they're protected legally. Just do it. Please do it. And then they need to consult professional PR people because they can't do it themselves. Their PR and their ability to address criticism and react to it is very bad. They need to consult some professionals about public relations soon. After they do both those things, they need to start rebuilding with a legit marketing strategy to expand their brand. They can't just continue being dead in the water. They can't. They're not going to go anywhere. They're just going to leave themselves open to more people leaving and just be really ineffectual. They can't want that if they want any kind of success long term. I mean, it's a different climate now when it comes to content creators on YouTube. It's now very much larger and much, much, much harder to get noticed for doing things related to gaming or movies. Channel Awesome, at their weakest, is still putting in viewer numbers that lobies, like myself, would kill for. Granted, I don't have any aspirations myself of being a legit content creator. I'm just happy to play the occasional Doom and Quake map and upload my thoughts, and that's about it. But there's a lot of other people out there that put a lot more effort into their work than I do that would kill for that kind of exposure still. And have the talent to match, if not surpass, what Channel Awesome had in the past. So after going through some major restructuring and some proactive PR management, I'm hoping Channel Awesome can start to recruit new talent. Try to be much more of a YouTube presence and an association of reviewers and do more networking through social media than what they have been. I really hope this is not the end. I really hope that big things will start to happen. A lot of people are voicing very little confidence that Channel Awesome will do the right thing. I'll be honest, as I'm making this video, I'm again worried how long before this video is obsolete and Channel Awesome throws more gasoline on the fire. I hope they don't. I really don't. We're all feeling nostalgic for the old school nostalgia critic. We're all feeling nostalgic for the creator community that was supposedly very welcoming and supportive that we were all led to believe existed. That's what we'd like to see return. Please make it happen. And that's really all I have to say about it. Thank you all for listening. This is Jag Taggart 93 signing out. You have a good one.